Back in the early 1970s, after I started my whitetail studies in Aiken County, Minnesota, um, my family and I, my family of children, my girls and boys and other hunters in the group got to be pretty good at taking whitetail bucks. In fact, we were having such a good time of it that during that period we decided from now on we're going to hunt older bucks only. Well, there were several hunting gangs down the road. You know, back before that time in Minnesota, wherever a gang of hunters hunted, most hunters in the area stayed away from it. We each respected each other's hunting areas and never bothered one another. But because we were taking bucks all the time and these other hunters around us weren't even seeing bucks, not realizing why, they started saying, the Nordbergs got all the bucks, meaning all the bucks in the area were living in our hunting area and they weren't living in their hunting areas. And year after year we were hanging up these really big monster bucks on our tripods in camp where people could see them. And finally they were getting to the point where they were getting kind of upset about that. They started thinking that, you know, it isn't fair. We have as much right to hunt in that area as they do. And so we're going to start doing that. There was one old guy, he was the first of them to do that. He started still hunting in our area right from opening morning on. And we could be sitting out there in nice quiet woods and all of a sudden we'd hear a voice saying, "I didn't know you had to stand out here." And of course, any deer within hearing was not going to come that way for quite a long time. And then another group started making drives right through the area that we hunted, right behind our camp. In fact, guys would walk right through the camp area while they were making drives. And there was another guy who started hammering tree stands up in the area right across the logging trail from our camp. And of course, this was getting a bit upsetting to us, but they didn't think it was fair that we should be the only ones to take big bucks. And so this went on for a few years, and of course it was ruining our hunting, having all these guys going through our hunting area like that. And so finally we decided it was time to leave, especially in 1989 after DNR built a gravel road right through the middle of our hunting area, a Nordberg hunting area since 1902 actually. And opening morning that year, we had 22 permanent tree stands. They were legal back then in our 4 square mile area that we hunted. And on opening morning, there were strangers in every one of them. It was getting pretty disgusting. And then I remember one morning, one of my sons and I decided we were going to hike out to a highland out in the middle of a spruce bog. It's about a mile hike out there. And we were about halfway out there early in the morning when it was still dark, heading in that direction. And a string of ATVs came across the bog. 11 of them to be exact, their headlights on, and they were heading out there, and we stood there. You know, we always had good hunting out there. Nobody else ever went there before. Well, that was our last straw. That made us decide to leave. Well, a couple of years later, while I was putting on seminars at a hunting show in St. Paul, Minnesota, it was a buck classic. One of the guys that were involved with the group that used to make drives through our camp stopped, and he says, "Well, we figured out why you Nordbergs left the area." I said, "Well, why is that?" "Well, you shot all the bucks." Meaning they still weren't finding any buck the way they were hunting, and it never seemed to figure it out. You know, I told them, I said, "Well, your problem is not whether there's bucks there or not. Your problem is that you're not hunting in a way that enables you to see those bucks. And still hunting and making drives like that is just, those are two of the worst ways you can hunt in an area. In fact, in a matter of a day or two, there won't be any deer in the area." So anyway, sometimes maybe it isn't good to be really good at taking bucks, and especially, you should be especially careful if you're good at taking deer. Don't be bragging about where you hunt. When somebody asks you, well, where do you hunt? And it happens to me all the time. Where do you hunt? I always tell them, oh, way up north, up near the Canadian border. And just yesterday somebody said, well, you mean up by Bemidji? And I said, no, a little bit east of there. And that was that. And so far we've been lucky. The last 25 years we haven't had much interference from other hunters. And that's kind of unusual. But we're kind of lucky here in Minnesota. We have a lot of deep wilderness areas, and if you're ambitious enough to get back in there deep enough, you just don't see other hunters. But it's not that makes it possible for us to take more bucks than most people. Like, you know, in the last 3 years, only one deer is taken per 10 square miles in the area we hunt because of the excessive number of wolves eating our ponds and other deer. They take 3 out of 4 fawns every year, and our deer just don't have a chance to recover to former numbers in that area. So it's tough hunting, but we still do really well. We usually take 4 or 5 bucks a year despite that problem. So, but anyway, keep mum about where you hunt, and if you're not seeing bucks, think about better ways of hunting. That's your problem. Well, good luck to you this year.